My kids and I used to tease Marcus about being a weak father. He finally had enough and posted on Reddit for the first time. I've always been a passive scroller on this app, but I'm Vanessa, and I'm in a bit of a bind. I'll give you some context. My husband Marcus and I have been married for about 8 years, but we've been together much longer. We're both in our late 30s. I'm 39, and Marcus is 40. We have 2 teenage kids who are absolutely Marcus, and I go way back. We met in high school and have always had a natural, easy relationship. We've grown up together in many ways, so even though we've only been married for 8 years, it feels like forever. It's strange to think that we're coming up on nearly 2 decades together, but I guess that's what happens when you've been with someone since you were kids. Marriage wasn't always a priority. We were both pretty laid back about it, especially Marcus. He's never been one for tradition or paperwork. He used to say that a marriage certificate wasn't what held us together, that love was enough. I agreed with him for a long time. We were just happy being together and raising our family. But that all changed when our oldest started asking questions. Kids are so perceptive, aren't they? One day out of the blue, they asked why my last name was different from Marcus's. Marcus and I had different last names. That question made us stop and think about how we presented ourselves as a family. After a few conversations, we decided to make it official and get married. Honestly, the wedding didn't change much between us. Our lives pretty much went on as usual, and we didn't feel any different just because we had a piece of paper saying we were husband and wife. Marcus stayed the same easygoing guy he's always been. Marcus has always been the more laid-back one, so I continued doing most of the organizing and planning in our household. We've always worked well like that, with me taking on the role of the decision-maker while Marcus played the supportive role. It's worked for us for years, but I think that dynamic is part of why I'm writing this now. Marcus, as much as I love him, has always been the more passive parent. Marcus doesn't often discipline the kids by raising his voice. He tends to be the one who lets things slide. It's not that he doesn't care. He cares a lot, but he's always had this relaxed approach to parenting. I've joked with friends before that Marcus is the fun parent, while I'm the one who has to be the bad guy. I've had to lay down the rules and enforce consequences for a long time, but it didn't bother me. In fact, I appreciated that the kids could always go to Marcus when they wanted a break from my strictness, and I could always count on him to be there to lighten the mood. But somewhere along the way, the kids started to see him as soft, and so did I. It became a running joke in our family that Marcus was the parent you went to if you wanted to get out of trouble. I admit that I contributed to it when I'd let them get away with things I'd never allow. I'd roll my eyes or make a sarcastic comment. It was always just a joke, but looking back, I wonder if there was more to it. Over time, those little jokes and jabs started to escalate. Especially as the kids got older, they started to join in, making remarks about how dad never gets mad, or how they could always bend the rules when he's around. It was all lighthearted. At first, it was just a bit of harmless fun. We would joke around with Marcus and he would laugh along with us like it didn't matter. That's why I didn't think twice about the teasing. Marcus always took it in stride. He never pushed back or said that the comments bothered him. If anything, he just smiled or rolled his eyes and let the jokes pass. So, when he got angry, I couldn't help but think how selfish it was for him to be upset. Now, after all this time, he never gave us any indication that what we said hurt him. He never once told me or the kids that it was a problem. I realize now that he just smiled, maybe rolled his eyes and let the jokes pass. So when he got angry with us, I couldn't help but think how selfish it was for him to be angry now, after all this time. He never gave us any indication that what we said hurt him. He never once told me or the kids that it was a problem. I realize now that I think that might have been part of the problem. If he'd said anything, I'd have stopped. I'd have realized how much it hurt him. I wouldn't have made those comments, and I wouldn't have let the kids keep mocking him. But he never said a word, so we didn't know. We thought it was all harmless fun. He was always laughing along with us, wasn't he? The kids were especially brutal. They would compare him to their friends' dads, ones who seemed more authoritative, stronger, more manly. They'd make biting remarks like, "Dad, you're too soft. You let us get away with anything." Or, "You're not really a real man, Dad." They'd even they even said other dads wouldn't let their kids talk to them like this. I thought it was just typical teenage rebellion, kids pushing their limits. I didn't think it was more than that, and I admit I never stopped them. I was guilty too. I drained him constantly, making light of the fact that he wasn't. I'd joke with his friends about how I was the one who made the decisions in our relationship, and that Marcus was the one who let things slide. He never seemed upset. He always smiled and laughed along. That's why I didn't think it was a big deal, but then things started to affect. At first, it was subtle. Marcus became quieter and more withdrawn. He seemed less engaged with me and the kids. I didn't take it seriously. I thought it was just him being in a mood or going through a rough patch. We all have our off days, right? I never realized it was something deeper. One night at dinner, the kids were in a particularly sarcastic mood, teasing Marcus about his inability to handle basic fatherly tasks like fixing things around the house or being the man of the family. It quickly escalated, and I, being the person I am, joined in. I made an offhand comment, and before I knew it, we were in a heated argument. I suppose we all know who's the boss in this family. I don't know why, but that particular remark hit him harder than anything else. It's like something in him snapped. He excused himself from the table, and I didn't think much of it at first. The kids and I kept laughing, thinking it was just Marcus taking a moment to himself. Then a few minutes later, he came back. I'd never seen him like that before. His face was flushed, his eyes were burning with anger, and there was an intensity in his voice that I'd never heard in all our years together. He slammed his hand on the table, which startled us all into silence. The look of fury on his face was something none of us had ever seen before. He shouted that he'd had enough, and the pain in his voice it was clear that he was frustrated and hurt. He said that we had treated him like a joke and disrespected him in his own home. He also said that he was tired of being the punchline. He told us that we had no idea how much he did behind the scenes, including cooking, cleaning, organizing, and keeping things running smoothly. He said that we had mocked him for not being a real man. I was really struck by how he presented himself as a real man. I'd never realized how much we relied on him or how much he did for us while we took him for granted. Now, hearing him say it, I could see just how much pain he'd been holding in all these years. He wasn't passive because he didn't care. He was holding it all together because he thought that's what we needed, and we repaid him. He said that being a good father wasn't about brute strength or being authoritarian. It wasn't about being the loudest or the most authoritative. It was about love, patience, and making sure we were all taken care of. He told us he was tired of being disrespected in his own home and of feeling empty. He was worthless. Then he walked out. He didn't slam the door or yell. He just left. He came back the next day, but things haven't been the same. He's distant and cold. He even stopped doing all the little things he used to do, like making breakfast for the family, doing the laundry, and dropping the kids off at school. He doesn't engage with us anymore. He's cut himself off, and the kids are strength. They've noticed that the dad they used to joke about isn't there for them the way he used to be. He stopped talking to them and participating in the everyday things that used to bring them closer. I've tried talking to him and apologizing, but he doesn't want to hear it. He told me that it's not as simple as saying sorry and moving on. He's been hurt for too long, and those wounds aren't going to heal overnight. It's been too long, and those wounds aren't going to heal overnight. He said he's tired of being treated like he doesn't matter, and that he needs time to figure things out for himself. I've never felt more helpless in my life. The kids have tried to make it up to him by taking on more responsibility around the house, but it's not the same. It doesn't fix the damage we've done. I've tried to have a heart-to-heart with him, to whom it may concern. I've tried to have a heart-to-heart with him, but every time I try to get through to him, he shuts down. I can see the walls he's put up, and I don't know how to break through them. We never really realized how much we depended on Marcus emotionally, physically, in every way. Now he stopped being there for us. We're left to pick up the pieces. I don't know if it's too late. I just want him to get over it and for things to get back to normal. I really don't know what to do. Update, hey Reddit, it's me. I should have updated days ago, but things have escalated and I haven't been able to get a handle on everything. I really appreciate the helpful advice I received on how to fix things with Marcus, but I feel like I might have completely messed this up and now forgiveness seems like a distant dream. So here's what happened. There was an incident at school involving one of the kids, which usually would be Marcus's area of expertise because he's always been the calm and level-headed one. I was the one who was meant to head it, but this time he refused to get involved. When I got home, I was really angry, and we ended up having a massive row. Marcus packed a bag and left so we could both calm down. I texted my friends to vent, and they all started sending him messages and calls telling him to step up and be a father. They even made some hurtful remarks about him acting like a woman. This really annoyed Marcus, and he called me to ask why I would involve my friends in something so private. Instead of apologizing, I doubled down. I told him it was selfish of him to get angry just because we teased him sometimes. I said that if he'd spoken up, we might have stopped and accused him of being selfish. He went quiet for a moment, then hung up. Then he ended the call a few minutes later. He sent me a long list of times and examples where we had undermined and mocked him about not being a real man or being soft, both privately and publicly. I'm just going to copy and paste it here because I tried adding the screenshot but couldn't, and I also edited the Mistrov. I'd often tease Marcus when he did chores like vacuuming or folding laundry. I'd say things like, "Look at Marcus playing housewife again." The kids would joke about how real men don't fold laundry. When Marcus tried to handle discipline calmly, I'd criticize him in front of the kids. I'd say things like, "He needs to be tougher," or "What kind of weak dad lets his kids get away with everything?" When something broke around the house, I'd joke that we needed a handyman because Marcus wasn't handy enough. The kids would chime in with comments like, "Maybe if you hit the gym more, you could fix things like other dads." When Marcus was too lenient on parenting, I would tease him by saying, I had to make all the tough calls because he just didn't have it in him. This made the kids see me as the one in charge. I would joke about Marcus's indecision at family dinners, saying things like I usually ordered for him because he couldn't make a decision to save his life. The kids would laugh, and it became a running joke during family gatherings. It was like watching football with friends. I would join in when the kids teased Marcus for not being as active as other dads, and I would agree, which made the joke even funnier at school and parent-teacher meetings. I would joke with other parents about how Marcus was the more laid-back parent who let the kids get away with everything during game nights. I would talk about how Marcus always let me win because he didn't have a competitive edge and was too nice, which became a source of ridicule in the family group chat. The kids would send memes about weak dads tagging Marcus, and I would laugh along. I concur, saying how accurate it was and how it brought back memories of Marcus reading his messages. It made me realize that these comments and jokes happened repeatedly and in many situations. I didn't understand how much they were affecting him because he always smiled and laughed along, which I misinterpreted as him being okay with it now. Marcus isn't responding to my texts, and the kids have been asking for their dad. They weren't home when the screaming match happened, and they're sad and confused about his absence. I understand now how deeply we hurt him, and I want to fix things, but I feel like I've ruined all the progress I'd made in trying to get him to open up again. I'm at a loss for what to do next. The kids are missing their dad, and I'm struggling to find a way to mend things with Marcus, who seems to be shutting us out. Any advice on how to move forward from here would be really appreciated. I'd really appreciate some advice on how to rebuild trust. Update, I apologized to Marcus, and he accepted my apology, which was a relief. However, when it came to me, things took a turn. I wasn't expecting this, but Marcus accepted my apology too. However, he made it clear that accepting it didn't mean he was ready to move past everything. He waited until the kids were out of the room. I was out on an errand, which I knew was just an excuse to have a private conversation with me once the kids were gone. He told me that while he forgave me, he wanted a divorce. I was stunned. I thought his visit meant we might be able to work things out, but apparently that wasn't the case. Marcus said he was done with me undermining him so much. He understood that the kids were kids and might be influenced by me, but as an adult, I should have known better. He said he was done and couldn't continue in this marriage. I started crying, but he asked me to stop because he didn't want the kids to see me upset. He assured me that he would explain things to them and that he would remain involved in their lives even if we were no longer together. He waited until the kids returned and spent some time with them before leaving. I don't think he's told them yet because they still seem okay. I haven't asked about us separating. I had to wait until they were in bed before I could let myself cry and sob into my pillow. It's been about 3 days since then, and I've been like a zombie at work. My performance has dropped significantly. I feel completely zoned out and lost. I haven't told anyone yet because I'm still in shock. This was the man I thought I would spend the rest of my life with, and now he doesn't want me anymore. It feels like a sick joke, and I don't know how to move forward. I haven't told anyone yet because I'm still in shock. I thought I would spend the rest of my life with this man, and now he doesn't want me anymore. It feels like a sick joke, and I don't know how to move forward. I'm struggling to cope with the reality that my marriage is ending. It's been tough to get back into the swing of things. I know I messed up and brought this on myself, and I get it. I know it's my fault, and I'm not trying to argue that what I'm asking for is sympathy. I just want a little bit of understanding. That's why I've been updating here. I've been surprised at how much it's helping me process everything, even if it sounds crazy. So here's the latest update. Marcus finally served me with divorce papers. It's been a couple of weeks since everything went down, and I've been trying to pull myself together. At first, I thought it was just a bad death. I had a dream that Marcus would come to his senses and change his mind. However, as time went on, it became clear that he was serious and truly done with me. I was trying to focus on work to keep myself from completely falling apart. If I'm going to get dumped, at least I can try to keep my work performance up. The other day, Marcus came over to the house to serve me with the divorce papers. He took the kids with him, which I assumed was to give me some space to process everything. I tried to stay strong and composed when he handed me the papers, wanting him to see that I wasn't falling apart. I thought I could handle this on my own, but as soon as he left, I broke down. I cried uncontrollably and felt utterly devastated. Even when he and the kids returned, I wasn't myself. The kids didn't look great either. Our youngest seemed to have been crying, and they all kept asking me if the scared. I told them it wasn't their fault. It was my fault and Marcus's fault, not theirs. So we're getting divorced. I don't think Marcus has told anyone yet, or else my phone would be blowing up with messages. I know he'll eventually let people know. It still feels like I'm trapped in a nightmare, and I'm struggling to wake up. Update. As you might expect, my phone was flooded with calls, messages, and texts. It got so overwhelming that I had to switch it off. I decided to take the kids out for a mummy and me day to escape the chaos, and we had a surprisingly good time together. The kids have been I've been spending a lot of time with Marcus recently. I found out that he's staying with his best friend, who was looking for a roommate anyway. I guess things worked out for them in that regard. I'm not sure if I should be happy for them or not. The kids seem to be adjusting, and I suppose they're trying to make up for their behavior before all of this happened. After Marcus announced the split, the flood of messages continued. I tried explaining things to my parents, but they've been blaming me, as have his parents, our siblings, and even our mutual friends. Everyone except a few personal friends of mine. It seems like my friends are against me, even though they've been pretty toxic in their support. I've realized their comments haven't been helpful. They've been insulting Marcus, calling him weak and saying he's not a real man. But I know that's not true. Marcus has been an incredible father, and I was wrong to undermine him in front of the kids. I've been trying to apologize to Marcus, but he doesn't respond to my texts. I understand he might need time, but I hope he'll eventually come around, especially since we'll need to co-parent. I've been a parent for a long time, and I know it's my fault. I've been getting a lot of blame from everyone, including strangers online. I'd appreciate a bit of sympathy, but it feels like everyone is just piling on. I'm currently not speaking to my parents because they've been more supportive of Marcus. I feel incredibly betrayed. A few days ago, Marcus came over to pack up his things. Marcus came over with his best friend, and it felt like the end of an era. It's been tough to cope without my kids, who are my rock. I'm trying to stay strong for them, but it's a challenge. Update. I know it's been a couple of months since my last update, and I've been focusing on getting through each day, dealing with the kids, and adjusting to life after the divorce. The divorce has been finalized. It was pretty straightforward, given that we'd only been married for 8 years. I didn't qualify for spousal support or alimony, but I don't think I would have accepted it anyway. Marcus. We also agreed on custody arrangements before the proceedings even started. He didn't want primary custody and opted for weekend visitation rights. So I got full custody of the kids, which seemed to be the best option, especially since changing schools and uprooting them would have been too disruptive. We've separated our finances, and the only significant issue was the house. As it was a marital asset, I ended up buying Marcus out of the house. It's really close to the kids' school, and I didn't want to move far from their routine. The house is full of memories, and while it's hard to be reminded of all the good times with Marcus, it felt like the right thing to do for the kids' stability. I've been in touch with Marcus more recently because, as we'll be co-parenting, it's important to stay on good terms. We're going to be parenting together for the foreseeable future, so we need to find a way to work together. It's not as difficult as it was before, but it's still challenging. I cry myself to sleep most nights, and I'm struggling with the realization of how difficult things have been without him. The house is a mess, and I can't believe how much Marcus managed to keep things in order while working full hifuftar. Since he's been gone, I've been putting in extra hours to keep things running smoothly at home. The kids have started doing chores, which they didn't have to do before, and they're not happy about it. I'm just trying to get by and live day to day. I'm still dealing with a lot of self-failure. I appreciate the few people who have offered support and useful advice. I'm not sure the rest of your comments have been helpful. They've been pretty miserable, to be honest. So thanks to those who have been kind and to those who haven't. I think you can just keep your negativity to yourselves.